Hey guys, what's up? It's Uncle Zunky. Welcome back to the Washington Wizards MyGm. Before we get started into the gameplay, we're just looking at the conference standings at the moment. We are currently in 11th place, so we have to make up 4 spots if we want to make the playoffs, and I think we can do that because we did make another move. I know I said I didn't want to do too many trades, however, the owner requested that I trade Nene. He said get rid of him, I don't want him on the team. And to be completely honest, I don't blame him because it's quite a big contract for next year, and I have somewhat cheated, and I've played an association with Nene before, and I happen to know he goes down 5 overall points in the next year. So he's not going to be very good in the next year, even though he's a solid player now. So we traded him for Luol Deng, who's also going to decline quite a bit next year. However, what is different between Nene and Luol Deng is an expiring contract. So after the end of the year, I will free up $10 million on the cap space so I can go ahead and sign a free agent or something to replace him. So just before the All-Star break, we are going up against the Raptors in Toronto, which is one of the best teams in the NBA and what has been the best team in the East up until recently when DeMar DeRozan was hurt, at least in real life, which kind of sucks. But DeMar DeRozan in this game, getting the game off started with a three-pointer at the very start of the game, so it was kind of a battle between two of the young up-and-coming superstars in the Eastern Conference between DeRozan and John Wall. And the Toronto Raptors always have a very tough home environment to play in because they have some of the best fans in the NBA. They get really loud, and they're not just playing for a team or a city, they're more playing for a country because Toronto is the only NBA team in Canada, as Bradley Beal slams it in transition. So I really wanted to win this game and get off onto a good start going into the All-Star break, and hopefully we will have multiple All-Stars. I don't think there's really any doubt that John Wall will be an All-Star. However, I'm hoping that Bradley Beal or Marcin Gortat can also end up making that team. And Luol Deng immediately proving why it was a good idea to trade for him. Even though he is a small forward, he's a 6'9" player, so he is big enough to run that power forward, not just as a smaller stretch power forward, but he has some size to him, so he can actually defend. He is a pretty good defender, so he can defend some of the power forwards, maybe not the really huge ones with a good post game, but he can defend any of those smaller power forwards. In this game, he was just going up against Patrick Patterson, who is more of a stretch power forward himself, so Luol Deng was almost a perfect matchup in order to defend him. And Luol Deng can shoot threes. That's something that Nene could never do. And so I'm a little bit more excited about that. Obviously, Luol does not have the post game as Nene does. Speaking of posting, Vince Carter posting what the team that he initially came into the NBA on and grew to superstardom on. And Vince Carter was a huge part of the Raptors for a long time near the beginning of the century and was a great player and really founded his career there. Unfortunately, it didn't end up working out and he ended up leaving after a lot of injury concerns. However, Vince Carter has returned to Toronto, although I'm sure he's returned there quite a few times since leaving the team. But Toronto has a really solid team as it is right now. They got a group of a lot of young guys that just gel together very, very well, and a good leader in Kyle Lowry who manages to get the entire engine running. And even though they don't have a whole lot of superstar talent other than DeMar DeRozan, it's just kind of cool how this team all fits together. And perfect release there with Jordan Crawford as he hits the 2. That's happened so much in this game. If you shoot a three-pointer, more often than not, it seems like their foot is just barely on the line. And one thing that they did want to emphasize in 2K15 is they did not want your players to automatically snap behind the three-point line, but I think they almost overcorrected it because in real life, typically, players are pretty good about making sure their feet are behind the line on those long-range jumpers. In this game, they're just not. As Greivis Vasquez cuts the rim there, and Greivis Vasquez was a really solid player off the bench. He's kind of their sixth man of the Raptors team, and he works really well when they have Lou Williams, who's also a really good scoring guard. However, Lou Williams is really short, so they have Greivis Vasquez, who is a humongous point guard, and he can guard the shooting guard, and then Lou Williams can guard the point guard, and it works pretty well because Greivis Vasquez is like 6'6" as a point guard, so he can guard some of those taller shooting guards. But John Wall wanted to try to take over in the second quarter as he gets the nice little flip shot there to go in off of the glass. John Wall really came out this game strong. Right before the All-Star break, of course, he wants to be in the All-Star starting lineup. I don't really see any point guards in the East that are better than him. Maybe Rajon Rondo, as John Wall gets the steal and slams it down in the fast break. This guy was just crazy. He was hungry to go this game. So unless Kyrie Irving or Rajon Rondo is having a monster season, I really don't see anyone starting above John Wall in the All-Star break. I believe he's averaging 21 points and like 10 assists a game, which are just some ridiculous numbers. Those are Chris Paul-like numbers. However, he also has the size and athleticism, so he can guard players a little bit better than Chris Paul can, even though Chris Paul is, of course, a very solid defender in his own right. But going down the break, Bradley Beal spotting up the left corner, as he always does on those breaks, hits the 3, and we are taking a lead here, and another steal. Marcin Gortat pokes the ball away from Jonas Valanciunas, and running the break again and giving it to Trevor Ariza, who just completely fails on the lay-in there. I just included that because I thought that was kind of hilarious. That's almost what I would do in real life if I was probably running the break like that. And turns out Terrence Ross spotting up in the corner. Another foot on the line shot. That's the second time that he has done that exact same shot in this game. You would have thunk that he would have learned on the first one. Marcin Gortat just hammers it on the break there. You got to feed the big man if he runs. That's always very important. Usually those big man defenders aren't always in the best of positions on the fast break, and nice block on Kyle Lowry, but Jonas Valanciunas cleans up the boards and puts it in. He was a really nice young center for the Raptors and was really coming into his own as a guy who's just extremely physical. Trevor Ariza gets the nice friendly roll on the three-pointer in the corner, and we have a 6-point lead. Marcin Gortat and Jonas Valanciunas presented a really interesting matchup, and they both have very similar games. And no, I'm not just drawing a comparison because they're both European, but they're both very physical big men that are very active with cuts and stuff, and they're both solid defensively but not great defensively. They both have a solid post game, and they're both kind of low to the ground players but still are pretty good rebounders considering they don't have the best athleticism. And Greivis Vasquez again cuts the rim, and this guy was just torching me. And speaking of torching, Jordan Crawford, who has done some torching in the past, wasn't really on his game, and Greivis Vasquez makes him pay in transition because I was getting back on defense. I was out of position and was guarding the wrong man, which left Greivis Vasquez open. But Jordan Crawford trying to get some payback. He is on the smaller defender now in Kyle Lowry, and even though Kyle Lowry is solid, Jordan Crawford just fading and hits it. Unfortunately, that was a 2. Again, another foot on the line. It's that right corner. I'm telling you, it's cursed every single time someone shoots from there. It's almost always just a 2-pointer. But we're running the break with Jordan Crawford again, and he slams it on James Johnson, who is a pretty impressive dunk because James Johnson is a very, very tall, small forward, and one that I've actually played with before in some of my associations, and he is an excellent defender just because of his height. But Luol Deng, another excellent defender at the small forward position, hits the deep 2. Another foot on the line shot. I promise I'm going to eventually get over it at some point. But it is kind of annoying, but DeMar DeRozan hits it with a hand in his face, and he is an excellent mid-range shooter. And we go into the halftime report. We are only shooting 20% from 3, which is kind of a fail, but we haven't shot very many of them either. So hopefully it will even out. 16 assists to 11 assists. Both teams are shooting under 50% overall, which I always like to see. And eventually, slowly but surely, getting a little bit more realistic. And John Wall, with the isolation there, yeah, there's not really a whole lot Kyle Lowry can do. He's just a little bit too small and not quite as quick as John Wall. So I was really trying to exploit that matchup. It would have been interesting if the Raptors were smart enough to put DeMar on John Wall, so he could have tried to guard him. Or, you know, at least someone that's a little bit bigger than Kyle Lowry. Maybe Greivis Vasquez could have done a bit of a better job at it if they wanted to go with a 2-point guard backcourt, because Greivis Vasquez was just killing us all game. So that would not have been a bad decision to put him into the game instead of Terrence Ross. But we are now going on a really big run. We have an 11-point lead. I'm feeling pretty confident at this point because the Raptors are kind of on the ropes. I think I got them, but little did I know the Raptors were going to come back. Lou Williams hits a 3. You cannot leave that man open. I know he's short, and it's kind of easy to forget about him just because of his minuscule size, but he is a deadly shooter. And Patrick Patterson also hits a 3. That's that stretch 4 potential that I'm trying to change my team into. There's just so much more spacing. It's so much more difficult to guard a team when their bigs can have an outside jumper, and unfortunately Marcin Gortat is never going to be that guy. But DeMar DeRozan hits another 3, and the Raptors are right back into the game on back-to-back-to-back 3s, and their defense also held me to only 1 point during that time, so that's a really good way to go on a run and get yourself back in the game. But Bradley Beal running off a nice cut and slams it on a couple of Raptors. And that's really nice when I see those backdoor cut plays because they almost always work. It's really, really rare when you see a backdoor play not work out. I think a big part of that is just how athletic our backcourt is. We have John Wall and Bradley Beal, who are both just very, very good leapers and can easily finish on a lot of those backdoor cuts against even some of the better rim protection in the league. But Jonas Valanciunas is starting to work the post, and he had a nice game as well. I did not utilize Marcin Gortat as much as Greivis Vasquez hits, not a 3, a 2, but it was kind of a battle of the centers again, and I really like seeing the big men go at each other, and Terrence Ross just pulls up for a little short mid-range jumper and manages to hit it. Not really a whole lot of defensive pressure keeping him from doing it. The Raptors are running the break. Greivis Vasquez again is handling the ball. I'm scared of that man, so I'm trying to guard him, and I completely forget about him, leaving him open, and he hits a 3. and the Raptors are starting to go on a huge run. We had a lead earlier in this quarter, it feels like, but that is no longer the case. Jonas Valanciunas gets a nice tip in, and we're going to go into the fourth quarter down 81-75. If we are going to get this win, it's going to be pretty difficult because we are on a very tough road environment, and defense like that isn't helping, allowing Lou Williams to seal off his defender, and that's not something that you're going to see very often, but it worked out well in that case. So we're going to have to go on a run, and that's not always easy to do when you are on the road, especially out of the country, as Patrick Patterson hits a nice little hook shot. I never really knew he had that in his game. He's been more known as a decent defender and jump shooting big man, but sometimes, you know, he pulls out a shot you weren't expecting. Trevor Ariza gets the rebound, and this time he does not hit the ball off the bottom of the rim, but he gets it in the bucket. And I'm going to need to start a run right about now because it's time. So I decided, you know, we've been shooting bad on threes all game long. Why not start our own three-point shooting? We are due for a couple makes. Bradley Beal hits one, and then the Raptors get a wide open three in the corner with Lou Williams, which I was very lucky that I didn't hit that, but Trevor Ariza is open in the break, and he hits one. We were just down 8, and now we are all tied up 87-87, and so we got this as long as we can just continue our momentum. But Greivis Vasquez again in the game. This guy has been killing me. Lou Williams and Greivis Vasquez combined were probably doing a better job than the starting lineup of the Raptors in terms of really just destroying and dismantling my defense. So Greivis Vasquez hits another three. I'm just in shock at this point, but John Wall goes down the break and slams it. And Greivis Vasquez, even though he is a better defender than Kyle Lowry, at least in this matchup, he was not able to stop John Wall at that point, and it is time for the John Wall takeover. He shoots a three and hits it, and John Wall just started to go crazy. Sometimes when you get late into the game and your team hasn't been performing all that well at the current point, what you have to do is just go to your best player. That's what I decided to do, and John Wall again finishing with the tough lay-in over Jonas Valanciunas, who tried to flop. It probably would have worked out better for him if he just contested that shot or fouled, because John Wall isn't the greatest free throw shooter in this game. I nearly get the steal, but it goes right to Valanciunas, who slams it. And just back and forth, because the fourth quarter was mostly a game of attrition. Both teams were scoring left and right. There wasn't really a whole lot of defense played, as Bradley Beal with the beautiful step back and hits that with the excellent release. I just think that looked absolutely amazing. I was pretty impressed. But Luol Deng getting into the post, kicking it back out to John Wall. He hits another one, and John Wall was keeping me in this game and also extending the lead pretty much all by himself. There wasn't a whole lot of scoring done by any other players. Most of the points that you haven't seen are free throws by John Wall, because he did get quite a few of those. And another step back, this time by John Wall, also with the excellent release, and he hits that, and that one looked so nice. So we had a 9-point lead at this point, and I almost thought we had this game in hand, because we are, you know, up on the road with a lot of momentum against a team who has been struggling. DeMar DeRozan has definitely had an off game, and then things started to go more in the Raptors' favor. Marcin Gortat nearly gets the ball stolen, but he does kick it back to John Wall, who just goes to the rim doing what he does best, and he slams it. So that was just a little bit of luck, a little bit of taking advantage of a situation with a lot of hustle, but the Raptors are going to take advantage of what they can do, which is shoot some threes, because they have been able to get open for those all night long. DeRozan hits one, and he was really, really off in this fourth quarter. Of course, I don't show all of the bricks that he put up, but let's just say he was trying to build a house. But Kyle Lowry cuts to the rim and finishes over Marcin Gortat. The stadium is starting to go crazy. They get it down to Jonas Valanciunas, who puts it to Kyle Lowry again, and it's a 2-point game with 30 seconds left. So I know that we're going to be going into the foul game, and I have missed a lot of free throws. We hit one there, and this is the Raptors' last chance. DeMar DeRozan has a decent look, but he misses. We push it out in transition, give it to Trevor Ariza, who slams it, and that is your game there. That is going to be the final score, 113-107. It came down close to the end. If the Raptors had hit that three with DeMar, and it would have been a 1-point game that could have been interesting, or you possibly could have gone into overtime. However, it didn't work out, so DeMar didn't have a great night. He shot 10 for 30, and I think that was the main cause that the Raptors did not win this game. If he was playing better, he definitely could have made much more of an impact, but he was being guarded by Trevor Ariza, who is probably the best defender on my team, and so that, I imagine, had a good effect. And he wasn't driving to the rim very much. He was mostly taking a lot of long, inefficient 2-point shots, and that's going to hurt you. But looking into the stats of my team, my bench didn't do all that hot. The best player off the bench was Jordan Crawford with 10 points on 50% shooting, which is alright, but the starting lineup was amazing. John Wall with 34 and 12, so another all-star caliber performance from him. Beal had 21, and my bigs were solid. And looking into the final team comparison here, we shot 49%, they shot 47%. A lot of field goal attempts from the Raptors. 101 field goals in a game is pretty ridiculous. But anyway, that's about all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you with the next one in a couple days, and farewell.